Hey friends, this is Marilyn from Tarot Clarity. Yes, you're seeing me in the same outfit with my fetching pearls made for me by my granddaughter. Aren't they beautiful? You won't be able to get them at a store. But I am making several videos so that I have videos available on the daily in case my weekend gets a little on the hectic side. So that's why I'm doing it. I want to make sure I have videos out there. So this video, I guess it's not exactly a part 2, but it kind of can be a part 2. And there'll probably be a part 3 and a part 4 eventually. But I thought, since I put out a question on my, I put out a poll. And I asked my viewers, what do you want to see, my next videos? And overwhelmingly, out-of-print tarot decks were chosen. So I got a few. I have a few to make a couple videos out of. So this is the second one. Now, I will probably do a third and fourth video, but, that they might not be in succession, but I will put them in a playlist. I will put them in a playlist eventually so that all my out-of-print decks will be in a playlist. Now, some of these decks, bear in mind, might be published by other people. So even though a publication might be out of print by, like, say, Los Scarabeo or US Game Systems, like from the big companies, you might be able to find them published by someone else. But I'm talking about decks that are out of print. And I'm going to start this video with a Giacomo Zoni from Bologna deck. This one was published by Los Scarabeo, and the date is 2000, published in Italy. Now, I think I was in search for this when I was looking for the Angelo Valla deck that I mentioned in the first video that took me so much trouble to find. Oh my gosh. It's kind of a funny story, but you'll hear it in the first video. And I think I purchased this sort of as a consolation prize for myself when it was clear to me that I probably wasn't going to be able to get my hands on the Angelo Valla. So I thought, well, I'll get this one, reminded me of it a little bit kind of thing. So, and I have done a side-by-side comparison with this, between this and the Angelo Valla, just to see how similar they might have been. So if you want to see that side-by-side, you'll find it in my videos. But let's flip the camera and take a look. This deck by Giacomo Zoni from Bologna was published originally 1780. Alrighty, so here we go. Now you see, coming from Bologna, we see those dots that we saw on the Angelo Valla, right? And this would be a facsimile deck. And I've put them in order just for the Triumph cards, and then the rest I'll just show quickly. They're not in order. And as I mentioned, I did show a side-by-side between this and the Valla. Now, not all of the cards have those red dots. Now, this one does. Now, in the Valla, the dots were on the gallows, right? But here, they're in the background, which is interesting. I love this guy's big head. So as the Valla deck, the Tarot of Trieste, I don't know, remember, facsimile decks that are 200 years old, they're going to fade. The colors are going to fade. The paper's going to fade. We're not maybe seeing them as bright or as cheery as they may have been. And in fact, the colors might not only fade, but they might actually change, you know. Oh, these look like they're in order as well. So the last time I used this deck, it's been a while, was probably just to use it in a side-by-side comparison kind of thing. We see a lot of the dots in the pips as well. Again, a petite-sized deck, not standard tarot size. I don't think it is. It feels smaller. The box looks standard, though. Oh, maybe it is standard. I don't know. It looks petite, or maybe it's because I have so many large-sized decks anymore that it just seems small. I don't know. But it's a nice size. I don't know. The dots kind of add something to this. I don't think they. I don't know where they. Some of you may be much more scholarly than I am, and you may say, "Oh, Marilyn, you completely misunderstood what they're about." Blah blah blah. Tell me, you know. But I just think they're probably for glue, you know, and the glue just kind of seep through, because I can't think of anything that's logical. Besides that, I tend to think of the logical first, you know. But there could be, you know, some people say mold, which makes sense. It could be mold. But they seem like they're in like strategic spots, you know? Like points, you know, where, and I think, you know, I don't know. I kind of think like you put some on the top, you put some in the middle, you put some in the bottom, and then the paper sticks, you know? So I tend to be pragmatic about, you know, I have an analytical mind. I go to the practical before I go to the woo-woo, despite being who I am. So here is a lovely Ancient Tarot of Bologna by Lo Scarabeo. Now, I have this other deck that when La Solabusca came on my radar, and this was years before Adams came up, you know, Adams and the Thing of Saturn came up in the Book of Saturn or whatever that, you know, he named his deck. And it was before, you know, the Anima Mundi decks, and it was before any of the big names made a Solabusca deck. I wanted a Solabusca. I just really, really wanted a Solabusca. And there were no Solabuscas. This was it, and it was already out of print when I purchased it. Now, this was printed in '95. And it's not even a facsimile deck. It was redrawn, I believe, by the very talented, I think Giordano Berti had something to do with this deck. I think he did. He might have been the artist who did some of the redrawing. Let me see. Let me see if I can find it in the literature. I'll be right back. Okay, so here's the page that tells us who's up and who's who in this deck. So it was copyrighted in '95 by Lo Scarabeo, perhaps under the supervision of this person. And then we have the artistic director is Pietro Aigo. The director of marketing, Mario Pignatello. And testo is Giordano Berti. Now, I'm not sure I understand what testo means, and I didn't know I was going to be needing to look it up before I started this video, but if any of you can shed light on testo. I knew Giordano Berti had something to do with the deck because I remembered seeing his name. So, but somebody like redrew the cards. So that's what it was. They redrew the cards in this style. But at the time, that was the best I could do. That was the best I could get, was the best I could do as far as getting a copy of the Solabusca. But it's not a bad redrawing. And now it's smaller, obviously. It's much smaller. And I'll tell you what, I found this, and it cost, at that time, it was the most expensive deck I ever purchased at $200. And in fact, it may be since. I might have other decks that are more expensive, that were either purchased for me as a gift by my husband or other people or gifted to me. But I think this was the most I had ever spent on buying a deck, and it hurt. It hurt, man. But I bought it and I paid $200 for it. And now, and then within like 2 or 3 years after I bought it, not even, it was, maybe a little bit more. Maybe I had it for 5 years. And then all of a sudden, every Tom, Dick, and Harry had a copy of the Solabusca. And now you can find this deck probably for about $50. So tarot can deplete. It can deplete, When it's the only game in town, it can be very, 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 very expensive. But then when other people come up with a Solabusca and then they flood the market with more, this one's like the least of the Solabuscas because it's not a facsimile copy, right? Although I must say, I felt that there was artistry in this deck. The borders are regrettable, but and it's a smaller size, as I think I mentioned. And then after I purchased this, because it was so cherished by me, because I thought like, oh my gosh, this is like so rare, that I kept it in its wrap for months and months, and I wouldn't open it because I felt like if I open it, I'll damage its value. So I bought it to have a copy of it, and then I kind of convinced myself, well, I shouldn't unwrap the seal, because if I break the seal, then it'll be worth less. And I don't know why I was worried about it being worth less, because I really wanted a copy. And then finally I said to myself, screw it. Just open the damn thing and enjoy it, which is what I ultimately did. But this copy obviously is out of, by Lo Scarabeo. This one is out of print. And I think the Anima Mundi by Lo Scarabeo put one out, and I have that one. And there are others, that are wonderful reproductions of this wonderful deck. Steps to the beat of a different drummer, for sure. And you can get into all kinds of conversations about what it might be about. But it was one that was kept, cherished by a family. It was commissioned in 1499 or thereabouts by a wealthy family who kept it in the family and kept good care of it, and comes down to us all these generations later. So, but this particular deck is out of print. Solabusca, and it was called the Illuminating Ancient Tarot. Tarots, plural. Some people say tarots. Okay, and then the last one that I'm going to show today is one that I'm so sad is out of print. I'm really sad about this one, because I would buy print decks for when I would go on vacation, because I knew that they would be kept safe, So I would just buy a few tarot in a tin and take them with me on vacation. I have the inverted tarot, which is also a pip style, which was based on the Roland Nordic, which I showcased not too long ago. I've showcased it a couple of times. And then, of course, this one, which is, a pip style. Now, I don't know why it went out of print, unless, of course, it wasn't a big seller, because most people want to see Rider-Waite-Smith or Aquarian Tarot or whatever, in a tin. But I guess not too many people want to see, which is one of the reasons why my channel, I think, I kind of I try to cater to Americans to consider, when I started my channel, I didn't think anybody from another country would ever watch it. In fact, I didn't think anybody anywhere would ever watch my channel, to be honest with you. I really thought I was talking to myself. But I've learned that there's, but I thought, well, there is a niche, there is a need because, there weren't too many American channels that were doing these kind of decks, these PIP style decks, and any of them that were doing readings, they were all doing Rider-Waite-Smith readings, So I thought, well, I have a very small niche. I'm catering to the English-speaking population, which is what I figured. I didn't think anybody from another country would be interested in me. And even if Americans were interested in me, it was questionable, And so I just started a channel, where I just brought attention to the PIP-style decks. Now, I don't know what order this is in, so let me see. Oh, I think I did put this one in order this morning. So this was done by a Filipino artist and illustrator, Leonard Jim Narciso. I apologize for my pronunciation. So he was also the artist who created the Vanessa Tarot. So, I created, my channel because I thought it would be a lot of fun to have, or an outlet, a place for people who are interested in pips and just to showcase them and maybe just get people to be interested in buying or using the pip cards, because it seems like in America, it wasn't an art, it wasn't an art form. It really didn't seem to be. When I say art form, I mean a tarot kind of form, like the big people and those. I started my channel, I think, in 2016. I've been here for a while. And I'd like to believe I was influential in getting some of the younger tarot channels going with the pip styles, And, but there weren't. And I was like, oh my God, I have so many pip style decks, and people don't even know about them. So, that's one of the reasons. At any rate, so I wanted to have a pip style tin. So I purchased the few that there were, and I have several Rider-Waite-Smith varieties in a tin that I take with me. And I was so happy to have this. And then it went out of print. So now I can't take it on vacation because I'll never take an out of print deck on vacation. Now, why did I buy this? I have always been somebody who doesn't like anything that looks borderline cute with bug eyes and stuff. Like, I'm not going to buy it. I just have no tolerance for cute bug eye kind of art. I can't. Anyway, so this one, when I saw the cover, I was like, that could be borderline. However, I was attracted by the name. My very dear cousin that I lived with when I was in Spain was Mari Cello. And when I saw this, Maria Celia, it's not the same name, but I thought, oh, wow. It's like, because my cousin Mari Cello passed away several years ago. And when I saw this, I was like, oh, Mari Cello's calling me. How could I not buy a deck that's so closely named after her? So I bought the deck, and it was and as it turns out, I like the deck a lot. It's really not cutesy. I love the petite size. What do we have here? Oh, dates 2018. U.S. Game Systems Inc. They're so concerned about people ripping them off. But at any rate, I bought it and I love it. But now I can't use it because I won't take it on vacation. I'll use it, but I never take anything that's out of print on vacation. So the colors are charming. I love the colors. I guess it comes close to being bug eye, but not quite. So I can deal with it. But the name is what really got me to buy the deck. And I think, as I mentioned in the first video, any of these decks probably can still be, and I love this guy with the mustache. Oh my God. Any of these decks can probably be had. There's people like me or there's estate sales or whatever that, just sell the decks. And you could probably come across them for, not an arm and a leg. But, as time goes on, decks start to become expensive. Okay, now these I didn't put in any order. you know, around right before right before 2023, I did a number of videos on the 007 from 1973. And I said, guys, you can get this deck now for like $50. But you know, once we hit that 50-year mark, it's going to be really hard to come by. You can get it now, and some people who, you know, will sell a deck and they think they're getting a lot of money for $50, but the 007 73 deck, you know, blue backs, not red, blue. You know, they're a person who wanted to sell that could probably sell it for upwards of $100. You know, if you get it for under $100, it's a good deal. And then, of course, there are the kind of decks that are, you know, crowdfunded, and they run 2,000, and then they get sold out and people buy them, and so they're technically out of print, but they might have just been done last year, right? So those kinds of decks, you know, I know that the Fortuna decks, I'm like been trying to find a amethyst. I purchased the 3 primary decks, the Opal, Omen, the Obsidian Occult or whatever, Occult Obsidian, and then the Emerald one was given to me as a gift. And then in the mail from I don't know who, I got another copy of the Obsidian Occult. So I don't know who sent me that one. There was nothing. There was just nothing. It just was sent to me. So I happen to have 2 copies of the Obsidian Occult. So like decks like that, they also go out of print because, you know, they're not redone. What will happen is they'll come up with like a second kind of edition, you know. Anyway, thank you for giving me the idea. I always appreciate when my viewers have an idea for a video. I appreciate it very much. And until next time, peace, stay well, be brave. Speak up, show up, vote. And if this should coincide with Thanksgiving Day, I hope you have a very happy Thanksgiving Day with whoever you love the most.